Hello, beautiful people, and welcome to another Wednesday Divine Soul Awakening. We have our guest, Rita Mustafa, as well as this little girl, Rocky, who's visiting us for a couple more days. So, we're psychics and spiritual mediums who have come together to help raise and elevate people's emotions and help them get to a higher plane while lifting up humanity. And today's show, this is all about the spring equinox, which is really where the daytime and the nighttime equal out. So we have a good even 12 hours of a day and night. And a lot of changes happen during this new season. So Rita's joining us again to talk about this, how to prepare our minds and bodies and get it ready for this powerful transition from winter to spring. So welcome, Rita.
Thank you. Nice to be back.
Hi, Rita.
Hey, everybody. So glad you're here.
Hey. They're coming in.
We're coming in.
Everybody's coming in. That's beautiful. It's beautiful. Hi. So glad everyone's here. Hey, Jim. Jim is going to be a guest on our show, I think May 18th, to talk about Edgar Casey and intuitive medical healing.
Awesome.
That's going to be super exciting. Hi, Marlene.
Yeah. Hi, Marlene. Hi, Karen.
Hi, everybody. Hello,
Kira.
lovely.
I love Kira 777 after her name now. I noticed that the other day. That's so awesome.
Yeah. And what does 777 mean? Do you know?
I'd have to look it up.
Yeah.
I'd have to.
Just love it, though. We
We know it's an angel number, right?
Yeah. We know
Great.
it's a good thing. Hi.
Hi, Carrie Lynn.
Hey, Carolyn. Hey,
All
everybody.
right. I think we've grabbed everybody so far.
Beautiful. So we talked about, I said in the intro, that we're talking about the spring equinox while we move in transition from winter to spring. And there's a lot of stuff that happens with our bodies and our mindset that Rita's just going to walk us through or talk about. So, I don't know, like as usual, we're playing off the cuff here, and whatever happens. So it's all fun. So,
Yeah.
Hey, honey.
Yeah, so we're supposed to be in spring, although I'm looking outside and it's -2 degrees and snowflakes are coming down. So it doesn't quite feel like spring here, but generally speaking, this is the springtime for us here, and we're up in Canada. So doesn't quite feel like spring, but our bodies are going into that mode. So springtime is spring and fall are generally the times that that the body will benefit from doing cleansing. And it doesn't mean you can't do cleansing any other time of the year. But spring and fall generally tend to be the most obvious times. And in Chinese medicine, spring is the time of the liver. So if we look at the 5 elements and if we're looking at the 5 elements, this is the time of the liver. So it's time to wake up the liver because we've been, again, where we are, it's quite cold. So in the wintertime, our energy kind of just goes inwards, and spring is coming, which means our energy now has to come back up and out, right? So it's a perfect time to do cleansing. And cleansing can mean different things, right? Some people will do fasting. Other people will just incorporate, certain foods into the diet. Some people will incorporate supplements. So it can mean different things to different people, and it doesn't have to mean fasting. You can fast if that's what you choose, but it just depends who you're working with and who you're, who's kind of guiding you with your detoxing.
Does it matter what type of fasting you do? I mean, I think there's like water fasting, dry fasting, just a heavy detox.
Yeah, I think it really depends on the person and, their constitution, I guess, or like if they're a very weak or deficient person, those are words we use in Chinese medicine. If someone's like relatively weak or deficient, then fasting is actually not recommended. Whereas if someone is more of an excess type person, meaning like, strong, robust, strong voice, just overall like have more excess as opposed to deficient kind of symptoms, then that person would benefit more from a fast, whether it's a water fast, a juice fast, just reducing the amount of foods, maybe cutting out alcohol. So so that's sort of how I pick and choose what I'm doing with clients. There's no one right, correct way to do this. It really just depends on the person. Hi, Doc.
Hey, Doc.
Hi, I'm late. I'm really sorry.
We're glad you're here. What about,
Me too.
so I know there's herbal teas out there that specifically say detox on them.
Yeah. So that's the nice thing about doing the liver detox is that it's pretty easy through food and through things like teas and supplements, right? So a lot of times the detoxing teas are a combination of different herbs, mainly like probably milk thistle or dandelion. Those are generally the main ones, but there might be other things like burdock, just depending on what the company has put together. But generally speaking, milk thistle, dandelion, artichoke, those are the main herbs we want to use to support liver.
So if you're just doing a tea,
Yeah.
is that enough? Like, can you eat pizza and burgers all day and
No.
you just have a tea and everything's all good?
Well, no, generally speaking, I wouldn't recommend that at any time, never mind only when you're detoxing. But at the end of the day, it's supporting the liver. So, you have to remember the liver is a filter, but it has so many other functions, like many functions there's so many functions that the liver has. So if you're going to stress the liver out through poor diet, alcohol, stress, not sleeping, all those things, then, if you're not going to change any of those things and then you just incorporate a tea, that's still better than doing nothing. But ideally, if you truly are trying to support the liver in making it work better, have the liver be more efficient, then yeah, you can do the tea, but you also have to think about all the other stressors on that liver.
So what are the big things that you would do if you're going to be doing a detox, just from like the average person? You're saying, okay, why don't you just take it easy on your system for a bit? What would be the things that they need to eliminate? Because people don't know what a detox is or how to go through detox.
So again, going back to, okay, what's going to make the body more efficient, right? So alcohol, like definitely eliminate alcohol. Foods that aren't contributing to any nutritional value, like deep fried foods or really greasy foods or processed foods, eating things with additives and preservatives. Like these are all things that the liver has to work extra for, right? So if we just take out those types of things, excess sugar,
Which for most people is everything.
I know for most people these are really hard to do, but I think if you become more aware, so even if you can't eliminate, at least try to decrease, right? If you're doing alcohol every day, well, what if you just did alcohol on the weekend, right? Mm-hmm. Or if you're eating fried foods, like maybe you eat out because you're busy or you don't know how to cook or whatever it is, then instead of going for the deep fried stuff, then why not choose something that's a little healthier? Maybe a salad, or maybe, something other than deep fried, greasy, low vibe food, right? Mm. So that's how I would do it. But again, you have to start somewhere. So if you're feeling, the liver in Chinese medicine is where we store anger, rage, so our emotions get stored in the liver. And so if you're the type of person that you're feeling, you anger easily, or you're very moody, or even depression, you're feeling depressed, then these are all signs that the liver might be congested and it needs support. So by eliminating things that, are going to put extra stress on the liver, then you'll see symptoms change. So hopefully by seeing those changes, you necessarily won't go back. Hopefully you don't go back to the old habits.
So how long will you be doing this detox for? The entire spring?
So personally, when I do detox with my clients, I'm doing 30 days, and for whatever reason, 30 days seems to work for most people, because they can, they can make sacrifices, or they can kind of tolerate the changes for 30 days. But my goal always when I'm working with clients is not to just, okay, don't eat this, don't do this. It's about teaching them why we do these things, and also having the clients have the clients become aware of how the body is changing from week to week. So if the first week we're just taking out, alcohol and sugar as an example, well, what happened during that 1 week, right? Was your sleep better? Was your joint pain better? Was your energy level better? Like, what's changing? And then we go to the second week. Okay, maybe we're going to take out coffee, right? So it's like, okay, now we've taken out 3 things. Okay, now what's your body doing? Is it sleeping better? Is the aches and pains better? Like, again, what's happening? What's changing? So if you can teach the clients along the way, if I can teach my clients along the way how their bodies are changing, then they become aware of it. It's not just me saying, just get rid of all this food and come back in 30 days. That's boring, right? I haven't taught them anything, and they're most likely not going to follow through because, why? Most people don't focus in on themselves and pay attention to the little things.
So, and why are we even doing this?
So again, in the winter time, our energy kind of turns inwards. And so when spring comes, our energy has to now come up and out, right? So just like plants, start to grow. So look at perennials that are starting to come up, like the leaves are going to start coming out, or the trees are going to start budding, like all that stuff. It's nature's way of just bringing energy back up and out to the surface. Mm-hmm. So that's part of the purpose. And if you have poor, eating habits, sleep habits, a lot of stress, and, we come to the point where spring comes, then a lot of times this is when people actually notice more signs and symptoms. Like they might actually notice, like I'm angrier than I was, in the wintertime, or I have more aches and pains now, or whatever it may be, because the body's trying to transition, but if the body is so depleted or stagnant, or doesn't have the energy to do stuff, then the symptoms arise. So that's generally why we're doing it in the spring, and we do it again in the fall because we're going to reverse the process. So we're
going to eat fried foods.
No, we're not. We're going to bring the energy back in. So we're going to be more mindful again of what we're putting in and where our emotions are, and we're going to just bring the energy back into the body.
Okay. Good Zeus. Hi.
So I'm hearing that from my guides that perhaps some journaling as you start to do these detox things might be helpful, Rita, for somebody, so that they can actually see it down on paper and not dismiss what is actually happening.
It's so true, because people always think they'll remember, right? But you won't remember. There's a lot of stuff that goes on in our day. So part of what I find helpful is the journaling, and also like recording. So in that journaling process, yes, record emotions, but record even the littlest things. Like, I slept an extra hour today, or, yesterday I had, I accidentally ate something with too much sugar in it, and today I feel really crappy. So it's really important to kind of just keep track of what your body's telling you. But also like bowel movements. How are bowel movements? Are they changing? Are they better? Are they worse? Are you constipated? Are you, are they, all this stuff. This is all things that help us kind of navigate where we're going. And a lot of times before I start people on a cleanse, I like to get them to do a little, I guess it's like a questionnaire. So they kind of rate, maybe it's something we can post that after, but it's a questionnaire to basically see at the beginning of before you start the cleanse, like where your symptoms are. So some people might not notice that, I'm congested all the time, but because I live with it, I don't think about it anymore, right? So it's like, okay, like, oh yeah, I do have congestion. Oh yeah, I do have joint pain. So it's sort of like being able to rate where the imbalances are, and then we do it again at the end. So it's like, well, what's changed, right? And so I find doing that, a questionnaire, journaling, that's all very important, I think, when you're trying to make changes.
Because everything's all kind of linked together, and when you see it like that, it makes those connections show up too, not just for you, but for us to be able to see.
Right. Yeah.
Kay's saying I will be doing a detox because I'm making space for new in my life during this time.
Nice. Yes.
Awesome.
I guess this is the perfect time with spring.
Yeah. Spring is growth, renewal. Like, this is the time to make plans, what you want to do for, yourself, or what you want to accomplish. Like it's about going forward, getting ready. So yeah, perfect timing.
Doc, in the medical world, is there anything that's involved around the timing of the season? Is the medical?
I'm sure there are. I have to say I'm not over familiar with this sort of area. But what struck me in terms of what you were saying earlier on is that by journaling, you're creating a positive feedback loop, which helps reinforce behavior change. In addition to that, what's quite telling is that people who tend to make lifestyle changes, they have to make the changes in their head first, purely because just being told to do it is not necessarily the best way, no pun meant, recipe for success, because it's that commitment that's really needed to make that step change. There are seasonal things, for example, with people storing more over winter time or prior to winter time, and likewise in the summer, we tend to sort of get attracted to certain foods. But I'm not aware, I'll be honest with you, of any well known or well described seasonal changes in how people handle their food. It might be more cultural than anything else.
Yeah, I know culturally there's a lot of different cultures out there that definitely have fasting at least once a year, if not more. And I think it would go with the seasons as well, with spring and fall as well. Right?
Yes, and bearing in mind, food historically has been seasonal, to say the least, with some form of storage over the lean months, and it depends on the culture, the climate, the latitude, all that sort of stuff. So every culture has their own way of handling these things, and in the scheme of things, I guess they are genetically adapted to those areas where they live, so that they are more able to handle certain foods than they are in other places, purely because they aren't there. The classic example is lactose intolerance in Southeast Asian populations like Chinese, etc., where milk and lactose in particular wasn't a regular feature in their diets. So you do see these adaptations occurring historically and over time, I guess.
Yeah. Now, have you guys ever done a detox or anything for the spring and fall, the equinox?
No, I'm afraid not.
Not purposefully. I think I'm just learning now about the cycles and the seasons. I never really used to until maybe last year. I wasn't really aware of like the equinox energies, and I didn't pay attention to the cycles that much. So, I mean, I would detox occasionally, but just as I felt like I needed to, not in alignment with that energy.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think if you are in tune, or you can tune into what your body is showing you, then that is also important in terms of like what you say, Rachel, is like if it's the middle of winter and your body's telling you to, you need to make changes, then you do it. You don't have to wait till spring, right? So paying attention to your body, even like minor changes, like it's your body talking to us, right? So sometimes we just kind of like, oh, that, my knee's hurting, and you don't kind of pay attention to it, and then it's, but that's your body actually telling you something. So what if that's inflammation? So okay, then let's address it. What's causing that pain, or things like that. So it's important to kind of pay attention to what your body's telling us, because even if it's a little, irritation or whatever, if we kind of fluff it off, then our body is going to show us again in a different way. So if that knee starts and you don't pay attention to that, then it might be, maybe your back starts, and then it's like, whoa, okay, well, why are my joints hurting now? And then if that doesn't, get addressed, then the body will just keep showing you in a different way.
I've seen, because typically growing up, I've always been told to, walk it off and never even think about it. So we were trained not to think about our bodies, not to complain about any pain or any issues. So now that we're getting older and we need to be a little bit more aware, at least I need to be a bit more aware of my body. It's only now, even through my own martial arts, I've always been very sensitive, but not on the medical side. And now that there's a correlation of medical, there's the spring, there's the changes in the energies that are coming through, my body's become much more sensitive. I'm much more aware of what's happening in the body, especially with these minor shifts that are happening, which I think historically women have been very good at being aware of their bodies and even their families' bodies. I think you're more aware of my body than I was of my own, for the last 20 years. Right?
Yeah, and I see that with animals too, because we end up, pet sitting a lot of animals, and it's funny how I just tune into there's something going on with the dog, whether it's walking, one leg is, whatever, pronating or something, and it's just, I don't know, it just kind of picks up. I just kind of pick up on that, but I think, I don't know if that's just a women thing or just.
I think it's a practice thing, just being aware of it.
Yeah.
I mean, like I said, I was always told to walk it off. Any type of issue, not to complain. You don't bring these things up. You don't say my knee hurts, my back hurts, like that's just complaining. So it's we're always told be quiet, don't complain. Go in the corner, go outside and play. Right? You're fine.
Yeah.
Right? So
There are seasonal associations with particular diets, and I'm thinking of the hot/cold food sort of differences that certainly in Southeast Asia and also in China people are familiar with. And so in certain times of the year, there are certain foods, for example, with a lot of ginger in, that tend to be eaten more, and conversely in the summertime. Equally so, and again, I'd be very interested to know if this is the case in the panel and also in the audience. When a lady has just given birth, there's said to be certain nostrums that are, quotes, more heaty or not so heaty, that should be eaten before and after birth. Now, I don't know whether that's just unique to South Asia as a whole, but it's something which I know people who've had babies, certainly in our family, they think they're actually very good. Now, I have no idea, but it's something which I keep hearing again and again about hot foods or heaty foods and cold foods.
yeah, so that's a good point, Doc. So you think about typically if I was going to be doing a detox or some sort of cleanse, or I just want to raise my vibrations up, I would start the morning off, let's say lemon juice or with ginger. Freshly squeezed ginger. Now, if ginger is typically a hot food and you're having that in the spring, does that mean that you should do lemon in the spring and then ginger for a winter?
So, right. So different foods have different properties. So in Chinese medicine, we look at the property of the food. So if someone is very deficient, or let's say the energy is stuck inside. So let's say they're depressed, or let's say depressed is an easy one. So if they're depressed, then we want to do the pungent foods that are warming, because foods that are pungent help bring energy up and out, right? So, and it's also warming, so it's good for circulation. So if you have poor circulation, cold hands, cold feet, then it doesn't matter what time of year, you can include the ginger, the turmeric, the garlic. It's like the really pungent foods because it helps with circulation. But if you're the type of person that's always hot and like, you know, high blood pressure, or like, you know, face is always red, eyes are always red, like there's already a lot of heat inside, then yeah, with those hot foods or warming foods, we want to do less of and do more of the cooling foods. So like you said, like the lemon or apple cider vinegar or that type of thing. With pregnancy, I don't work with a lot of pregnant women, but in Chinese medicine, it's sort of the same thing. So if someone's had a difficult birth, lots of blood loss, then in Chinese medicine, we incorporate things that help build blood. So red foods, right? Think beets, think purple grapes, plums, like anything like purple, red, blueberries, like black, like any of those dark foods, they help to rebuild blood again. And that's usually, and in terms of like hot or cold, again, it just depends on the person. So if they've lost a lot of blood, most likely they're deficient, and they would probably benefit from those warming foods like the ginger and the turmeric and things like that. So I think if you just look at, because everybody's so individual, right? Like I probably would look more deficient compared to this person, but internally I have a lot more heat. Like I like cold food, I like cold water, I like cold. Whereas, you know, he's got cold hands, cold feet. Like he would benefit from the opposite. So he'd benefit more from the pungent, the spicy, those types of foods. So
yeah. Whereas before I didn't have cold hands and feet.
Right. Yeah.
It's only now in the last couple of years, as this condition has changed the body, and it doesn't flow as well. That's interesting.
Right. And that's a good point also, because the liver in Chinese medicine is about the smooth flow of energy. So if you find you're clumsy, or if you find you can't do things smoothly. So in your case, like walking, you can't do it smoothly, right? Or when you're spasming, that's not smooth flow of energy. So that's part of that liver energy where the qi, the energy, isn't flowing properly. So it's either stuck or it's intermittent, or those types of things. So
does that mean I'm supposed to be like detoxing all the time?
It's not about detoxing. It's about supporting the liver and doing things to support that smooth flow of energy through the body. So what could be stagnating or affecting the liver, right? Lack of sleep. You don't sleep good, right? So lack of sleep is one of them. You're not very mobile, so you're not very active. So that, again, doesn't help with the smooth flow of energy. So it's looking at not necessarily that you have to detox all the time, but how do you support the organ itself when you can't change things?
So outside of like an emotional release and having proper diet and trying to get a little bit of movement, what would there be when you're limited?
So in terms of like
supporting the liver,
supporting the liver. Yeah. So eating healthier is definitely a big part of it. You can still do things that support liver. So whether that's milk thistle, dandelion tea, you can I put beets in our juice in the morning, so that supports liver. So yeah, it's just incorporating additional things into the lifestyle.
Carolyn's saying she's used to detox to the seasons, and using the book. There's a book, Staying Healthy with the Seasons. I used to read a lot. Yeah, that's great. But it also sounds like that it's not just the seasons; it's the person. So it's the person and the season. They really have to go hand in hand.
Yeah, most people who are in balance will change with the seasons naturally, right? So in the summertime, most people are just going to go into summer mode. Like they want more cooling foods. I want watermelon. I want, salads. They're not going to say like, oh, I'd really love like a beef stew in the middle of winter. Like generally speaking, right? Our bodies are if you're in tune, then the bodies just sort of adapt to that. But if your body's maybe not in balance, then maybe it doesn't recognize the changes.
One of the things which I've noticed is that sensitivity to hot and cold, particularly the cold, is more prevalent in the older populations. And I hesitate to say what old is, but people who are at one stage are bouncing around and running around on the football pitch, after they hit maybe 40 or 50 plus, they start to feel it. And likewise with joints as well. And I think there's something about that, probably circulatory, I don't know, which does that. And some of these foods, for example, chilies and certainly ginger to a degree, help dilate blood vessels. And so there is that sort of alignment in the scheme of things. But it's, I think it's a wonderful way of applying quotes natural science to your body, and your body is your own test tube, and you can actually see how things work and see how things change. And it's just it's a really nice way of figuring out what's going on with your body. But one thing I noticed with me, for example, is if I didn't eat late in the evening, or if I stopped eating, say after 6 p.m., that had a big difference on the way I felt, the energy that I had. I didn't feel so sluggish, and the blood sugar levels were improved the following day. So, we're all sort of wending our way through this milieu of A, food, and B, habits that we've accumulated over time as to when and how and where we eat. That it's just a nice way of refreshing your thinking and saying, well, actually, maybe if I tried this, maybe I forgot that and not tried that. And it's just it's a way of doing things that's different from being told, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And you also, as you bring up a good point about the country that we're in, because a lot of the people in Southeast Asia, they typically eat a lot of hot. Because the country's hot and they eat hot, and they match up with that. So that being said, like a lot of people in let's say Southeast Asia, India and whatnot have ingest a lot of hot foods. How would, like, I mean, do they typically need something cooling? What would they need typically?
Yeah, so it's about balance. So in the warmer countries, like even Mexico, when you look at like, okay, they eat a lot of spicy foods, right? So whether it's and what that does is it helps them sweat, right? So in a sense, it's helping them to cool down. But there's also the excess. So if you're just going to eat only spicy foods and not balance it with like cooler foods, so whatever that means in different countries, right? So it might mean like fruits and vegetables in one country to help balance out the hot of the other, or I don't know, water,
Cool drink or something.
or drink, or like even we think of like miso paste, right? So if you look at the different kinds of miso paste, there's really dark miso paste, and then there's really light miso paste, right? So that's one of the things we learned in TCM. So it's like, so if you're, in maybe the more northern part of the world where it gets colder, then, those people benefit more from like the dark miso, which is like fermented longer and like, it adds more warmth. Whereas the cooler the warmer areas would benefit more from the lighter miso paste, right? So it's even like taking the food and also like you can keep going, like what's the word I'm looking for? Like narrowing it down. Yeah. So it's finding that balance. It's really finding that balance.
It was often said, and I've sort of observed it to a degree, that when you go to a hot climate, your appetite goes, and food doesn't taste as tasty, the traditional stuff anyway. And so apparently the reason why the Brits loved curry so much was when they went to India, their food was so bland in terms of biscuits and stuff they normally had, that the curry and the spice actually made it palatable. And I've sort of got this funny feeling that in other places, the closer you are to the equator, the more spicy the food needs to get to basically make it palatable, because you're just sort of totally zonked out by the heat. And I don't know if that's true or not, but I've certainly seen that in other countries where, apart from changes in the source of carbohydrates, where, for example, in the more temperate climes, it's wheat-based, and the more southern climes, or equatorial climes, it's more rice or yam or that sort of thing. But the spice goes up and up and up the further south you go in quite a few countries.
Yeah, I guess that's, it's true, right? Yeah, I don't know about the equator thing. That's interesting. I haven't heard that before.
Yeah, I didn't hear that either. That's really cool. I love that. Go ahead, Doc.
I also noticed Sun had mentioned had a question about any advice for lowering blood glucose levels, brackets fasting. She tried fenugreek and made her dizzy. Son, I don't know if your grandmother told you these things, because we obviously come from a similar background, but bitter gourd is said to be hypoglycemic, and so it was often suggested that's the sort of thing you ought to eat. Dare I say it, fried is pretty nice, but that's another story. But it was the sort of thing that we had told to us by, I remember my grandmother telling me this long time ago. And it may be that in certain cultures there are similar foods that might be, I quote, hypoglycemic or affect the blood glucose levels.
Yeah, I've heard bitter melon, pumpkin, lemon. Those are all helpful for lowering blood sugar.
Yeah.
And what type of foods? I mean, Sunny's in Botswana, so I don't know what kind of foods are available there. But what is there a certain class of food that you look for? Like I guess squashes, pumpkin squashes. I don't know if that's readily available in Botswana.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, lemon is probably available in most places. I mean, even if you start with lemon, that would be a good release. But also looking at, right, so blood sugar again is the symptom of an imbalance. It's not necessarily the problem, right? So it's just the symptom of an imbalance. So go a little bit deeper and find out, well, what's causing the imbalance. Do the cells need nutrition? Does the liver need support? Are they lacking chromium? Like, go back a few steps also just to kind of see, well, what's also contributing to the problem. So look at it more of a symptom as opposed to the actual problem.
Doesn't that defeat the purpose? Don't you typically look at the problem?
Well, the problem in this case, if we're talking blood sugar, yes, that's what people think the problem is, but that's the actual symptom, right? Because the blood sugar is imbalanced because of, I don't know, maybe liver, maybe cells need regenerating, maybe they're lacking, chromium or something else, or
right.
Maybe the pancreas needs support, whatever.
So she would need some sort of test, I guess.
I mean, if she's testing her blood sugar, she would already know if the blood sugar is imbalanced, but I would think go back and work with somebody in terms of, just looking at symptoms again. How is the liver functioning? How is the pancreas functioning? What other signs and symptoms are there? Are there digestive issues? Are there emotional issues?
All the above.
All the above.
Yeah. Okay, so you're doomed. No, I'm kidding.
It's just how my mind works, right? When I have a client in front of me, I can't just say like, oh, blood sugar here, like, get rid of the sugar in your diet and you should be fine. Right? Because if that were easy, if that was it, then everybody would fix their problem. Just stop eating the foods that are contributing to the blood sugar problem. But a lot of times it's not just that, it's other things that are also contributing to that imbalance. That's just how my mind works when I'm with a client.
Yeah. I have to say, son, if I was living in Botswana, I'd have trouble dodging the sugarcane. I tell you, that's a tough one. But there's also something we said for some Ayurvedic approaches to this. Now, again, I've not had direct experience, but I know people who found that Ayurvedic approaches are looking at different types of diets associated with your body type, and I think they're called doshas or something like that. A lot of people I know found that helpful, and it's something to consider. I don't know, but you have to explore this yourself.
Yeah, that's true. I don't know enough about Ayurvedic medicine, but yeah, I think there's like Pitta. I forget what the three.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
And she says, Rachel, do you want to take over comments?
I'm not signed in.
Okay, I'll get it. So
I can sign out and sign in again if you want.
No, it's all good. So Sun says she feels guided to find health professionals. her own doc just told me the test was not bad. So maybe somebody in homeopathy as well. Yeah. I personally find it's good to have both. Yeah, a lot of the times it's unique. We have to remember we have medical doctors and we have a lot of alternative or ancient medicine that's been around for a long time. So the combination of the two, of using the modern, I find just using one way only is limits your path. So having a little bit of understanding on the medical side, having an understanding if you're a homeopathic person, that's Ayurvedic, Ayurvedic, whatever alternative that might resonate with you. It's really good to have that. Both of those two to kind of work and bounce off. Now, typically, I think most ancient medicines are more open and receptive to work with the medical diagnosis, but the diagnosis from a medical doctor, they typically don't want to hear about the alternative, but some do. They really like to know the understanding, much like our own Dowsing here has good understanding of all different types of practices and doesn't negate them.
Yeah, sure. Well, I'll give you one little example. My cholesterol was pretty high, and probably still is actually. And I was put on statins, and it went down from about 9 to 6. But when I changed my diet to a raw food diet, it went from 6 to about 3, 2.5, which is really quite remarkable. The clinicians were really surprised at what a big change it made. Subsequently, I'm given to understand that my particular body type, or dosha, whatever it is more attuned to raw food, and I just love eating raw food. And so it's funny how these little external nudges are there, and if you're able to just sort of test the waters a bit and check yourself and so on, you might find that you're either guided or you find there's a particular resonance with a particular type of way of eating or type of diet that works for you. The one thing I would say with diabetes is having a glucose monitoring stick thing is really helpful, because you can get immediate results to know what actually is making a difference, rather than waiting several months for a HbA1c test to figure out, and that's just too far away.
Beautiful. So if anyone has any questions for our team of experts here, please feel free to ask. Anything you wanted to share?
I'm just looking at my notes, see if there's anything that we can talk about. Okay, what if I go back to, as we're waiting for questions, if we look at Chinese medicine and we look at the 5 elements, so springtime is the element of wood, and then there's different other associations with it. So the color green is also associated with the liver or the wood element. So, which makes sense in terms of like spring, new growth, but that can also translate to how we eat. So more sprouts, more microgreens, more dark leafy vegetables. Just incorporating more green foods is another way to support the liver. So it doesn't have to be juicing. You can just eat it raw or have in salads, or but probably the easiest way. But you can also cook them. You can steam them, that kind of thing. That's also beneficial too. The wood element is also associated with the eyes. So again, looking at, are you starting to have eye issues at this time of year? Are your eyes really red? Are you getting the itchy eyes? So like, think seasonal allergies, right? This is the time that people would start getting these kinds of signs and symptoms. So those are just indicators for me that, okay, if eyes are involved, then that leads me back to focusing on liver, supporting the liver. Mm-hmm. The flavor associated with the wood element is sour. So this is where our lemons come in, our apple cider vinegar, those types of foods. And that is to help wake up the liver. But we don't want to do too much sour, because that's also very drying. So if you're a very dry person, like dry hair, dry skin, dry nails, then you don't want to overdo it on the sour foods, but incorporating sour, so like lemon water first thing in the morning, it's a great way to start to wake up the liver. So that's just using a little bit of the 5 elements theory on the liver.
So what does it mean by the element wood?
So, well, there's the 5 elements that are represented. So each season is a different element. So wood is just basically the starting of the cycle, the start of the cycle. So it's wood, and then when we get to summer, it's the fire element. So you think heat. There's a middle element, which is like it's a transition time. So we call that the earth element. So the earth element is the earth element is earth, and then we have the lung, which is our metal element, and then we have the kidney, which is our water element. So just different elements to kind of represent the season, kind of represent the organ itself, and can also be used to get an idea of a person themselves, like what are their constitution is not the right word, but like what element they fall into. So if someone is like a metal element, that person is very rigid, right? So like they like rules, they like to follow pattern or follow rules, and they want things a certain way. Like that's a very metal type person, right? So sometimes it just helps to kind of, if I have an idea of what that person is, then that also helps me determine what I need to work on. Right? An earth element person would be someone who's like always so nice and like gets stepped on all the time because they need to do everything for everybody because they're just an earth person and they just have to help everybody. Right? So that's like a really earth person. So
you get walked all over.
Somebody that gets walked all over. Yeah. So and a wood element would be more emotional, quick to show emotion. Not necessarily not flexible, but not like super flexible. She hears another dog barking.
So Kay is asking, what about best foods to reduce stress and also foods for hydrated skin?
To reduce stress.
Yeah.
So I think that goes back to just foods that really. Okay, so stress could be a number of things. So if we're talking stress, like stress from work and life and whatever, then we want to support the adrenals. So most of the time I would say like cut out stuff that stresses the adrenals, cut out coffee, cut out sugar, and other stimulants, alcohol, whatever. And use, generally I use herbs to support. So you can do things like ashwagandha, whether it's like as a tea or a powder. You can use adaptogenic mushrooms like reishi or what's another one? Shiitake, maitake, like just adaptogenic mushrooms. So if it's stress from like life and you want to support adrenals, that's what I would do. If it's stress from also like maybe having an illness, then pretty much all the same, but maybe you need to support a specific organ. So maybe you need to support liver, or maybe you need to support your kidneys. And then what was the second thing? For foods for hydration, hydrating the skin. Yeah, so hydrating the skin in Chinese medicine, we look for foods that build yin or build fluid. So a lot of those are fruits and vegetables. And so juicing would be a very good way to hydrate the skin. Obviously, drinking water with enough mineral salts in it. So whether you're adding like salt to the water, like a Himalayan type salt, or maybe like a concentrated mineral, and put that back into the water. That's all different ways to hydrate the body.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, less caffeine. I saw less caffeine for sure.
Yeah.
And Son is saying she takes rhodiola herb as a supplement for stressful days.
Yes, so rhodiola is another good herb to support adrenals. So sometimes you can get like ashwagandha, rhodiola, and other herbs together as a formula. But yes, rhodiola is very great for like an adaptogen, so adapting to the stress.
And Kira's been mentioning also chamomile. She mentioned earlier chamomile tea, and she's mentioning aromatherapy too, chamomile mixed with Oil mixed with base oil, apply on body. Oh, okay. Interesting.
Nice.
So
Yeah.
it's kind of like attacking from both, from internally and
Inside,
externally.
outside, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's
very
nice.
good.
I like that.
Love that.
And Amy is asking, Rita, I've been clenching my teeth lately. I'm not sure if it's just ascension symptoms, perhaps. Is there anything you'd recommend to help with the prevention and the pain or inflammation, please?
Okay, so clenching of the teeth. So I would tune into when that's happening. So is it happening all the time? So is it like, or is it a response to stress? So you're just sort of clenching for stress. Sometimes is there grinding of the teeth involved too, or just clenching? Maybe you can answer that. Yeah, so basically you can try to do things to relax. So magnesium is a great way to help relax muscles. So that could be one thing that you could try. So magnesium as a supplement. There's even magnesium like gels that you can rub into the muscles of the cheeks, just clenching. Yeah, so I would look at stress. To me, I'm thinking stress. Like stress is causing you to clench. So try adding some magnesium, both internally and or externally. Get like a magnesium type gel.
Beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
And Mina says her friend has been drinking red reishi mushroom tea. It has helped her blood pressure and immune system. Are there any side effects?
Reishi mushroom side effects. Off the top of my head, I can't think of side effects of doing medicinal mushrooms. Yeah, off the top of my head, I can't think of any, but I'd have to research it.
And Jacqueline says she seems to get seasonal hair loss. Why? Is there anything she can do to help? Is there anything? Yeah. What can she do for that?
Seasonal hair loss. Okay, that's interesting. So to me, when I hear hair loss, so I think the body is it's in a detoxing process, and it's sort of putting more of its energy to where it needs to go. So hair is not necessarily important for the body. It's nice to have, but it's not as important as the liver or the kidneys or the heart, right? So sometimes my thought would be that the body's naturally going into like a detoxing phase, or maybe the body's become too deficient in B vitamins over the winters. So incorporating more B vitamins like a B complex, biotin, those types of B vitamins into the diet to see if that helps stop that. What else can I think of for seasonal hair loss? Yeah, maybe also support the liver if it's trying to detox. Maybe it needs a little bit of support. So thistle, dandelion, beets, artichokes.
A lot of choices.
Yeah, a lot of choices.
There's a lot of choices. Yeah. Beautiful.
Welcome.
Awesome. We're at a standstill now.
We're at a standstill.
Yeah.
Okay. No more questions.
No more.
Soaking it all in.
The more you end up learning, the more complicated it gets. Where you think about like certain people, like George Burns, living like in their late 90s, and they smoke, but they're laughing all the time.
Yeah.
It seems that the attitude could possibly even be more than what you're doing with your own body, like just being happy and laughing, and not hanging on to, let's say, negative emotions.
Yeah, I think that's a big part, because if you look at like Betty White and like Carl Reiner, like all those guys, right? They're very lighthearted, like laugh stuff off. So yeah, I'm sure that definitely plays a big part. Not
Yeah, I agree. Even with channeling, I noticed like the if I have a headache or something, or I don't feel good, I start channeling. I feel fine afterwards, like fully alive.
Yeah.
It goes away sometimes.
I know after my Friday shows, I have a huge amount of energy after just channeling. But compared to doing a practice, so when we do our practice sessions either here or on Rachel's business page at Intuitive Self Rising, I end up feeling a little bit of drained from it. But after doing a Friday show, it was just straight channeling and calling in beings and just passing information on. I'm wired after like 2.5, 3 hours. I'm just completely wired. So it's noticeable.
There's also something about stress and hair loss as well. And if your attitude to external events as well as your internal constitution, that may also impact. So, I mean, it's just a thought, Jacqueline, whether or not the seasonal hair loss that you've noticed, is that associated with anything else that's going on in your life that may be affecting you at that particular time. Obviously, don't say what it is if it is not in an open forum, but these are things to reflect on. I know someone who's currently just finishing their PhD and she's having hair loss, but this has been on the back of 2 years worth of COVID, and that's a very stressful time to be working on a very big project on your own at home alone. So I've certainly seen it in some others as well.
So in terms of detoxing as well and entering into the spring right now, I also think about some of the medications that people are taking or being pressured into taking. And you have like a bit of a side effect that happens with the adverse effects or reactions you have from this. Is that something you can detox as well and get out of your system?
That's a harder question. I think if you have to take medications regularly, I'm sure it's going to have some effect on liver, possibly kidney. So you can always support the natural process again. So using herbs is a bit tricky because I don't know what medications people would be on, and some medications and herbs don't mix. But you can always use food, right? So if you have to be on a lot of medications for some reason, and we know that the liver is most affected by it, then turn to the foods that support the liver, like beets, dandelion, artichokes. Like incorporate more of those foods into the diet. If the kidneys are more likely to be affected, then parsley. What else is good for kidney? Asparagus. Like just incorporating. You can just use food to help support the organs that are going to be affected the most. And honestly speaking, if you can change your lifestyle to a way that supports just a healthier lifestyle, meaning more get rid of the alcohol, get rid of the sugars, get rid of the the coffees, the additives, the preservatives. If you're doing that, like it's amazing how much the body just corrects itself by just making those changes. And it's not and it might feel like you're depriving your body, but when you feel better and you maybe don't have to take as much medication, like why would you want to go back to not feeling great? Right. So it's getting to a point where you can actually notice the difference within your own body.
Well, that's what it seems to be happening now, especially with all the quantum changes that are happening to the planet. And you get all this energy put down on you, and you're going to feel a little bit low. So you end up wanting to comfort yourself, whether that's with alcohol or eating comfort foods, that it seems to have a reciprocal effect, that you're eating some of these other foods or you're taking these drugs or alcohol to feel comfortable. Right. Now you can actually, if you actually look at a few things, at detoxing, having healthier foods, meditating more, really hitting that mind, body, soul aspect to really help with these transitional stages seems to be our greatest defense and offense to being able to get through these times. That's just my statement. I would say, I don't know whether you guys agree or disagree with that, but it seems, because I feel like I'll go up and down in terms of my energy. And maybe about last month, I ended up not having coffee for the month. And I typically have, Rita and I will share an Americano, decaf Americano at nighttime. But I found that in the last month that I've been doing that, compared to the previous months where I didn't have any coffee, my energy was just so much higher and my channeling was just so wide open. And I was starting my days off and having like a lot of lemon water and I just felt so much more energy in my system compared to these last few weeks. I think I noticed that actually yesterday. It's like, I think the coffee and not doing the lemon water on a daily basis, I'm noticing it.
Yeah. So, and those are the little things, right? It's the little things. So it's like when you know your body can feel better, then you're more likely to go back to that at some point. And also going back to your comfort food thing, like a lot of times it's like, it's not the worst thing in the world to comfort yourself with food, but if you're doing it on a daily basis, then that's more the issue than why is that happening? So are you suppressing or not wanting to deal with something or whatever it may be? So it's finding that balance, right? It's not like you can never eat certain things or you can never touch alcohol or you can never, never is not a great word, but it's that pattern. If you have to do it every day, whatever that is, why?
I also find finding the alternatives. Yeah. So if you enjoy a cheesy pizza and that's your comfort food, it's finding the alternative that's like, let's say, a cauliflower crust with a vegan-based cheese, a plant-based cheese on there, maybe plant-based meats and some vegetables. I feel that tends to be a little bit better. I don't know, Doc, what do you do for comfort food?
Ooh. Well, that's a very long list, I'm afraid. Probably starts with chocolate and biscuits, but that's just a start of a 10. What I would just sort of mention is I found that when I went onto a raw food diet, my channeling just went stratospheric. I was just picking up stuff all over the shop, and it was really quite remarkable. But what I hadn't realized, because my daughter has picked up on this, was my skin improved within about 5 days. They all noticed that my skin got a lot clearer, and it looked. The one in particular who mentioned it was the one who'd been telling me to hydrate all the time, or moisturize. She kept on saying, I didn't do any of that stuff, but the diet alone made such a difference. And I guess it's trying to find the in that works for you. I really wish it was chocolate, but it isn't. But on the other hand, maybe dark chocolate would do the trick, I guess. But for me, that's what worked, and I do like my tea, and that's been a tricky one because I really like chai and coffee. It wasn't me, by the way. So it's I've got 2 dogs running around here as well. So obviously trying something different is the only way you can actually figure out whether it works. So my only way of getting away from chai and the sweetness of chai was to have turmeric tea, and that really made a difference as well. I felt a lot better with turmeric. I know a lot of people swear by it as well. So
yeah, we found that with roasted dandelion tea was a great alternative to coffee because it's rich and flavorful. It doesn't taste like coffee, but it's rich like coffee.
Yeah.
There's also another alternative brand called Ticino, and Ticino is they'll have like a tea bag style, or that you can sift it through a water. Currently, I like a French press version as well, and that's actually it's like chicory root and mushroom, and it's such a mix in there, but it's rich.
Yeah.
It's a very thick, rich drink, and it's quite tasty. Yeah, I thought that was good.
I think there's an alternative to coffee made out of chicory as well. And I can't remember where I read this, but I do remember trying it a long time ago.
Yeah, barley also is a good substitute. So roasted barley. I like the roasted dandelion tea. That's my morning drink.
Right. Is that the roasted root? That's the root, isn't it? You got the
It's
root
the
and then
root
you
of
roast
the
it. Yeah,
daily
fine.
plant. Yeah, it gets roasted and then just turned into a powder.
Okay.
Because now the time of spring's here, you're gonna have lots of dandelions. So
Yeah.
just
Come
save your dandelions, everyone, and make yourself a tea. As long as you don't spray your backyard, it'll be organic.
Yeah. Yeah, I saw a
don't
great
get
YouTube
those
video.
in where I live.
No?
Yeah.
Not really. I mean, no, actually, maybe no, not like we're in Ohio when I used to live in Ohio. Everywhere, but it's really desert out here. You have to plant grass if you want it.
Love
There's a
that.
story behind dandelions. Dandelions were brought by the Romans to Great Britain because it's used as a salad leaf. And so that's allegedly that's where it came from. The little buggers have grown all over the place now. We can't get rid of them, but that's another story, you know. So it's unintended consequences. But,
If you can't beat them, join them.
Yeah.
yeah, you can't beat them, eat them.
Yeah, eat them. That's right. You know, and Jacqueline brings up a good point that you get stressed and you lose hair, but then because you're losing hair, you end up stressing again. So it really becomes this dangerous loop getting stuck, right?
Yeah, it's a tough one. It's a tough one.
It is a tough one. Yeah, I think I think that's where the mindset comes in. Is I know when I'll have like a certain pain or ache, I'll go through a bit of funk. Last week was a little bit rough for me, but now like I finally was able to change my thinking on it as well. That when I have that tightness, it's like, okay, this is just the body's protecting itself. It's rebuilding. It's getting stronger. And they're just trying to change the word. Or if there's pain, it's like, oh, that's not pain. It's the body's really activating and reconnecting things, and it's getting stronger. So I have been changing the wording that comes to my head. Even though I have the negative chatter that happens in my head, I've been trying to catch it, or I have been catching it and then talking it and observing it. So I'll use that as an opportunity to observe it. And if I can't emotionally release it, which I haven't been really good at until recently again, but also it's kind of, I felt it's built up and I had to change the attitude around. And it's only now, after about a week of doing this, that I'm starting to get the momentum on it to talk positively to any type of ache, pain, negativity that I have when I move or whatever happens. And I think it's like everything. It's like a practice.
Yeah, with women especially, because women and their hair, right? Like women are very attached to their hair. Men, it's a different story. But yeah, when I'm working with women who are having hair issues, it's stressful already, and then the stress can be contributing to the hair loss. The B vitamins can help with that, both the stress and the hair loss. But just working with someone to figure out what else is going on also. So it's not just stress. Is it the liver? Is it the body detoxing? Is it deficiency? Maybe you're iron deficient. Maybe you're deficient in something, right?
Silvana's saying sumac has lots of vitamins, especially vitamin C. Rita, are you familiar with any other benefits of a sumac tea or cold drink?
You know what? I see that come up a lot, but I haven't had enough experience with it to kind of talk about sumac.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can't say I know much about it.
No.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many options out there that really, when someone says I've tried everything, well, you haven't tried everything. Because there's so much out there, and there's new things that we're seeing now. That we're seeing around the planet, like new animals showing up, new plant species are showing up. The Gaia and the Earth is changing itself right now as well. That we're seeing so many new species that healing is we're really approaching that forefront of being able to heal ourselves naturally with what's happening and not necessarily following a lot of mainstream advice. Yeah, so those ancient ways are coming out.
And I think that's really quite an interesting point, because we live in such a a rich environment now where cultures are spreading all over the world, it may be that a particular something or other from another part of the world or culture or background or whatever may resonate with you, or may be more appropriate with you for you than might have been traditionally been the case. And Jim mentioned Tulsi. I mean, Tulsi is a basil. It's something from India, and yet it's become a not so unfamiliar thing that people are doing here. Turmeric is all over the place now, and so it may be that exploring other systems of healing may be an option to consider, purely because if you perhaps have exhausted everything that's locally provided or available, there might be something else elsewhere.
Love that. Love that. Well, I think we're getting to the end of our day here.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to do two things at once right now, so don't mind me. But so let's talk about what's going on for the rest of the week. What do you guys got going on, Rachel? What's going on with your world?
Well, tomorrow we'll do our mediumship practice in my private Facebook group, Intuitive Soul Rising, and Con joins me for that. It's Thursdays at 12:30 Eastern time.
That's right.
Yeah, so that'll be fun. And then no other live events for me after that. There's my group. And I just set up my Patreon site, so I've been kind of working on adding content to that. And I have some giveaways that I'm doing with that. So I just reached 20 new patrons today. So yay. I know. And sorry, I'm giving away a free hour reading for each 5 new members that come in. So we're up to 4 readings now that I'm going to be giving away tomorrow on that live. So it'll be fun. Yeah. So if you join in, you'll be in the running for the reading. So if you can go to my site for that. And yeah, and then Con, you started your Patreon site too, right?
I did, yeah. As of yesterday, it finally launched. The business page is up, and although I'm waiting for Facebook to release a few issues, and the emotional release group that I had, that was set up like probably over a year ago, and it's just all blocked right now as well. So I got to create a new one because Facebook is not being my friend right now. Maybe that's why I haven't set up on Facebook for some time. But I definitely set up my new Patreon channel yesterday. I do have multiple tiers, but I'm just releasing one tier right now. And what that is, on the first Thursday of every month at 4 p.m. Eastern, I'm getting together, and it's all about healing, emotional releasing, and manifesting. So with these processes, it will be to understand who is part of the group, who's going to be joining the lives, and it's going to be a little bit catered for each. But as I go through this process and share this process that I'm doing through healing, that's actually working really well on a lot of people. I find the biggest issue is consistency. And part of this is to do it on a frequent basis. So I'm just starting it out at the month level. Once I move out and add the weekly level, we will then have different days and times based on the group that shows up, and try to accommodate everybody so that not everyone is using just a pre-record if they can't make the live. And then during those sessions, I plan to do not just emotional releasing, but also going through the different systems of the body. So going through the digestive system, the cleansing system, like the liver and the kidneys, going through the blood making, the central nervous system, and having specific meditations and releases specifically for the different systems, the different organs, and the different emotions. So the first set we're going to be working on are the emotions. And there's a certain set of primary emotions that have been narrowed down by particular psychologists. And we're going to be working on those. So starting with like anger and fear and hatred, and just allowing ourselves to feel what that is and where it shows up in our body, and then releasing it. And it's going to be a process that once a month is not going to be enough. The monthly is really just a maintenance. But I'm just going to start out there. first Thursday of every month, 4 p.m. Eastern, and I'll add the extra weeks on after that. But for now, once a month and see how it goes. So I'm super excited about that. Yeah, thanks, Rachel, for asking.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. That's really helpful
Okay.
for a lot of
And
people.
of course, this Friday, so that's in 2 days, it is channeling Eric again. So so bring your questions for intuitive guidance as I'm wide open with Eric. And it's going to be April Fool's. So that's April 1st. So I don't know what he's going to do, what's going to happen, if he's a bit of a trickster or not. So we'll see what happens on there. So we'll see. There's always a joker. Always a joker.
Yeah.
And a big congratulations to our doc here, who has launched his YouTube. And I don't have the address up on here, Doc, but
Okay. I'll pop it in a little bit later on. I forget myself, to be honest. So I need to look it up. If you just Google, if you just search for the Inner Voice online, you'll find it on YouTube. But I need to put it on the thing. The one thing which I would say is thank you to everyone who's given me feedback on the first video. It's exceptionally helpful to me, and I'll be making certain changes accordingly. I've got some more. Well, I've got a little program developing in my head to apply this on. However, the thing I would like to raise is a remarkable. Thank you, Khan. There's a remarkable event organized by one of, I think it's Grace, on this group, and it's to do with providing support, particularly to women and girls in Afghanistan. I forget the session, what the name is, and please forgive me, but maybe we can put that up on a bit later on. But bear in mind all the challenges there are in the world. Some things can perhaps occasionally get forgotten, in particular the plight of women in some countries, especially, and as we know, in Afghanistan, in terms of the way things are going with education and other matters. So it's a little bit of a plug. I think it's midnight on Saturday UK time, whatever that means in your own location. I can't quite remember, but Khan, I think you're going on to it.
I'll be going. Yeah, I believe it's Saturday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
Okay. And how do you get on? Yeah, I had an invite. I had an invite via from Grace. I can't remember the. Is it through? Which
I think
group
it's
is
on
it?
the community board for Lightworkers Facebook group, private Facebook group.
Got it. Okay.
I'm going to do a quick little look for that.
Yeah. All those who are observing this, if you could attend, it'd be really helpful, because we'll be doing some guided meditations, trying to focus and channel and focus light onto the areas and try to lift the vibrations. As it happens, in a past life, apart from being obviously Jewish, as I said before, I also was a Pashtun soldier, which comes from that part of the world. And so I've had quite a few recollections coming through of how and what I did in that time. So with a bit of luck, I've been told I will be bringing that back and the learning that I had from that life. So if only for the entertainment value, it's worth coming along, because I don't know what the hell I'm going to say myself. So it should be quite interesting. But the learning from that will be, I think, the key to take back, not just to the group, but also beyond. And hopefully we can make, or at least we can add our little weight to that change that needs to happen in other parts of the world.
Yeah. So I have it here. It is on the private Facebook group called Community for Lightworkers. So if you do a search in Facebook for Community for Lightworkers, it's a private group. You just throw your name in there. And it is at Saturday at 7 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. And the event is called Healing Meditation for Women and Girls of Afghanistan. Very important to help.
Yeah, and I have to give a big round of applause to Grace for pulling this together and sorting this out, because it's a very important thing, and it ripples beyond that country across other areas of the world in time and space. So,
yeah, here we go.
Okay.
This group, beautiful. Love that. Love that.
Oh,
And
there was one other thing. We're going to try to be anonymous on there. So no names, no faces. Just keep it nice and blank. If you have a little image of something, you want to put like a flower or whatever on your login, it'd be quite cool. But I think for a whole bunch of reasons, it's probably better to make it look a little bit anonymous. Because as I understand it, and Grace, please correct me, we're going to try to record some of this and translate it into other languages, and then see if that filters out into the firmament, and hopefully it'll have an impact wherever it goes.
Yeah, I know we have to be particularly careful with that side of the world, because it's.
That's right.
Yeah. Anyways, I don't want to say too much about that, and I don't want to trigger or pull anything up. But yes, let's all be there and support our global family. Yeah. And how about you, honey bunny? What's going on with Rita Mustafa?
I actually don't have anything going on, but I'm available for dowsing sessions. If anybody needs support with the detoxing, or you want me to check in and see if there's any imbalances that need to be focused on, go to the website. But that's about it. I don't have any events happening.
Awesome. Well, that's it. Rita has worked with a lot of people globally with her pendulum dowsing and balancing. So if you have any issues or anything that's going on with your body, check in and reach out to Rita. She is ridiculously good. Ridiculously good. Thanks, honey. So next week, what is going on next week? We got a practice session. So next Thursday on Divine Soul Awakening, we got a practice session. Now I'm going to put this out there. Does anyone want to be a guest to join us online live and be part of the practice? So you don't have to type in your answers. You can just be on camera with us. We have room for at least one person to join us on there. So if anyone is interested to reach out to us or be part of the show next week, just be part of the practice session. Reach out to any one of us and we'll get you a link to include us. Yeah, and I guess we'll figure out whatever the divine in the universe is going to be when it chooses who might that be, right?
Yeah.
So with that, any final words for everybody?
Oh, just get to detoxing. Yeah.
That's it.
Some salad.
I'm going to be familiarizing myself with the feather duster for professional reasons, because I've got a whole bunch of rooms to spring clean, and that'll be my detoxing this week. Okay.
Yeah, I got to do that too.
Maybe better ways to do a spring detox, but yeah, I understand. Well, all right, beautiful people. So have yourself a wonderful week, and we will see you tomorrow on Rachel's channel at facebook.com/intuitive soul rising for another session of practice. And join us on Saturday or Friday for me at 12 noon on my channel at youtube.com/connight. Saturday for the meditation for women and girls of Afghanistan with Doc and Grace. And we will see you all next week for a practice session again on this channel. So much love, everybody. See you then.
Bye.
Bye.